They dragged me into the chamber blindfolded, convinced their technology could peel my thoughts apart like pages in a book. To them, I was just another primitive life form, soft, fragile, easy to break. But as the restraints tightened and their psychic probes clawed at the edges of my mind, something shifted. They had no idea what lurked behind human silence. The kind of darkness born from centuries of struggle, pain, and relentless will. They believed they were the interrogators. They were wrong. The chamber reeked of antiseptic and ozone, a cold metallic scent that seemed to seep into my bones. Every surface shimmered with alien precision, smooth and unyielding, reflecting the faint violet glow of their psychic scanners. I had been brought here not as a prisoner, but as a specimen, an experiment to test the limits of human thought and resilience. The Cathari believed they had studied every facet of intelligence, every strategy, every conceivable reaction. Yet I felt no fear, only the simmering anticipation that comes from knowing you are underestimated. They were towering, fluid beings, their forms shifting with every subtle movement, alien musculature and translucent skin rippling unnaturally. They watched in silence, their collective gaze pressing on me like invisible hands, probing not my body, but the essence of who I was. Each pulse of their psychic probes was meant to extract obedience, to map the boundaries of my mind. But they did not understand what it meant to survive as a human. Not truly. We are defined by our choices, by chaos, by the contradictions we carry within us. Where they saw weakness, I saw opportunity. Where they expected submission, I was already calculating the cracks in their perfect order, the fissures they had hidden even from themselves. As they prepared to begin, I allowed a faint smirk to touch my lips. Imperceptible, almost invisible. They would see control where there was defiance, weakness where there was resilience. And by the time they realized their mistake, it would already be too late. The probes pierced deeper than they ever had before, slicing through the surface of my thoughts, scanning for fear, for hesitation, for the tiniest flicker of weakness. The Cathari were meticulous, precise, and unrelenting. Every movement I made, every flicker of muscle was analyzed, categorized, and assessed. They whispered among themselves in 1,000 unspoken voices, their collective mind weaving patterns of logic, attempting to predict me. But human thought is not linear. It is jagged, wild, unpredictable. Every plan they conceived collided with my own. Every expectation they held crumbled beneath the weight of instinct, experience, and sheer stubbornness. They had never accounted for the quiet patience of someone who has endured centuries of being underestimated, who has learned to survive not by strength alone, but by cunning, observation, and the subtle art of provocation. I let them push me to the edge, fading confusion where there was clarity, vulnerability where there was none. Their confidence grew with each false display of weakness, a dangerous arrogance that shone like a beacon in the darkness. They assumed the human mind would bend under pressure. They assumed the inevitable. And then the cracks appeared. Small at first, a hesitation in the collective pulse, a pause in their probing. The more I withheld, the more they tried to fill the silence with force, intensity, and psychic coercion. But the harder they pressed, the more dissonance rippled through their unity. They were still powerful, yes, terrifyingly so, but they were beginning to doubt themselves. And doubt is a virus. Doubt spreads, unseen, until it consumes the strongest of structures from the inside out. I allowed a quiet smile to touch my lips. Each psychic surge, each moment of panic in their analysis, reinforced the truth they had ignored. Humans were not to be dissected, not to be contained, and certainly not to be underestimated. By the time they realized their error, the game would already have turned. The chamber erupted, not in flames or explosions, but in psychic chaos. The Cathari's collective mind, once a flawless symphony of logic and control, fractured under the relentless unpredictability of a single human consciousness. Every probe, every pulse, every attempt to dominate me rebounded like a stone thrown into a storm. They were skilled, ancient, meticulous, but they had never faced someone who could turn their own precision against them. I moved through the chaos calmly, letting their fear, confusion, and uncertainty swirl around me. Their once united queries collided, twisting into dissonance as conflicting thoughts fought for dominance. They realized their mistake too late. The human mind they had sought to break was reshaping the battlefield. My silence, my defiance, my refusal to conform became weapons. Every flicker of hesitation, every momentary doubt I ceded widened the fissures in their unity. And then it happened. A surge of collective thought, a tidal wave of psychic energy meant to crush me, turned inward. The Cathari, in their desperate attempt to regain control, inadvertently exposed their own vulnerability. Fragmented waves of fear and doubt collided with each other, sparking eruptions of psychic feedback that reverberated through the chamber. I stood in the eye of that storm, unwavering, untouchable. The interrogators, the masters of thought, the architects of precision, were beginning to unravel. Their eyes, or what passed for eyes, widened in disbelief as the realization sank in. They had underestimated the human spirit, the unpredictable force of a mind that refuses to be contained. For the first time, the Cathari felt what they had long thought impossible: fear. Not fear of me alone, but fear of the consequences of underestimating a species they had labeled inferior. The chamber was silent, but not in the way silence usually feels. It was heavy, oppressive, and charged with the remnants of collapsing thought. The Cathari were no longer a single, unyielding consciousness. They were fragmented, individuals adrift in a storm of doubt and uncertainty. Their perfect harmony had shattered, leaving them raw, exposed, and for the first time, truly alive in their own flawed way. I stood alone amidst the ruins of their certainty. My body ached from restraint, from psychic pressure, from the battle that had raged not with weapons, but with sheer will. Yet I was unbroken. Where they had tried to dominate, they had instead revealed themselves. And in that revelation lay the power humans always carry: unpredictability, resilience, and the courage to defy expectations. As I left the chamber, the alien city outside shimmered like a fractured gemstone. Its light fractured along the same lines as their collective consciousness. Brilliant, yet unstable. Beautiful, yet terrifying. The Cathari would rebuild, perhaps, but the echo of a single human mind would linger forever, a reminder of their vulnerability, their arrogance, and the limits of even the most perfect intellect. And me? I carried nothing but the knowledge that one human, quiet, underestimated, relentless, could change everything. That sometimes survival was not about brute force, but about persistence, observation, and the ability to turn the enemy's certainty into chaos. The galaxy outside stretched vast and indifferent, but I felt a strange satisfaction. They had tried to interrogate a human. They had tried to bend me, to break me, and they had failed. The real question now hung in the void, unanswered, echoing in every corner of the stars. How many more mistakes will they make before they learn what humanity truly is?